Good morning. I'm Sylvia, a member of the Board of Trustees of Tahoma UU Congregation. As we begin our gathering, I respectfully acknowledge that I speak to you today from occupied Puyallup ancestral land. I pay respect to the elders past and present and extend that respect to their descendants and all indigenous people. We welcome all who are joining us for longing for community, the hope for peace, and for who are seeking justice. We are a diverse congregation which encourages each one who comes through our doors to find their own truth and belief. We invite all to join us in search for meaning and community, guided by reason, respect for each other, and by love. The wonderful thing about this virtual platform is that we have an opportunity to welcome guests outside of our traditional geographic area. In past Sundays, we have had visitors across this country, even across the ocean to England. So a special welcome to our friends and our returning friends from near and far. I invite you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Links to the video version of this service will be posted this week, as well as on our website. You can find all of our program announcements this week in our e-news and listed on our church calendar. And here are some of the highlights. Today at 10:30 a.m., children are invited to join Nancy Slocum for Children's Chapel. And you can email Nancy for that Zoom link. Each week on Tuesday nights, parents of children and youth are invited to join Nancy Slocum for parent drop-in on Zoom. On Tuesday at 10:30 a.m., Thursday at 3 p.m., you can join Reverend Linda for a chat on tea time. Looking ahead to our annual holiday pageant, we need pageant without preparation players. The best thing about our annual pageant is no acting experience is required, only an ability to have fun and participate in the rehearsal for holiday pageant on Sunday, December 13th at 2 p.m. and the nativity pageant on Sunday, December 20th at 10:30 a.m. Links to all of our programs can be found in the weekly e-news or via the events on our church calendar. Thank you for all of your ongoing financial support to our congregation that makes all of this possible. These programs, our staff who create and facilitate the programs, and the connection that we make through our congregation. Now let us prepare to gather in worship.
Here are our opening words for today. You have come and I have come, and we have all come together this morning here in this chosen community of faith and hope. We have all come for reasons so various that we could hardly name them all. Some have come to be comforted in a time of struggle and pain, here hoping to find a moment of grace and peace. Some have come to be challenged, to explore new ideas and dreams, here hoping to find a word of truth and reason. Some have come to be uplifted from the confusion and scatter of their lives, to find again the high purpose that guides their heart. We have come here for reasons beyond counting. Some we may not even fully know ourselves. In this hour of our gathering, may each of us find what we have come here for. A moment of peace, perhaps a bit of grace, ideas and dreams to challenge the mind, and a word of truth to call us forward. Maybe even a movement of the spirit and a view of those values that we seek to shape our lives toward. And may we also know the strength that there is in our gathered community and be touched by the joy of our coming together, our hearts linked to each other, and our lives turned toward the work of healing the earth and each other. We have come here for reasons more numerous than can be counted, All are welcome to our celebration and our worship. It is good to be together.
Good morning. I'm Janina Wright, your celebrant this morning. Now is the time in our service when we light our chalice. Please grab your chalice at home and join me in the unison reading as Linda lights our chalice for us today in her home. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come.
My name's Nancy Slocum. I am the Director of Religious Exploration here at Tahoma UU Congregation. I am today coming to you from the warmth of my home. Quite a change from being in the sanctuary, although I missed being there this morning and was sad I wasn't able to light candles today. This is our time for all ages, a time when we invite the children typically to come forward and hear a story or a lesson. And so I invite kids come close to your screens. Today, we are talking about the land that we are on. And we are talking some about the people who lived here long before any settlers moved out here, any European, any white people came to this land. There were other people who lived here, and we'll be talking some about that today. And the land that our congregation, our church building sits on is land that was once inhabited by folks who were of what we call the Puyallup tribe. Many of you perhaps have driven through the city of Puyallup or gone to Puyallup, gone to the Puyallup Fair. And so we hear the word Puyallup quite a bit. The Puyallup tribe actually in their language, which is called Lushootseed language, it's a Lushootseed language. I'm gonna do my best at pronouncing this. They call themselves the Squialapuch. So it sounds a little like Puyallup, but it's gotten changed into English to the Puyallup tribe. And it translates to people from the bottom of the river. The Puyallup River, some of you may know, it comes down from Mount Rainier, and it comes out into the waters of Puget Sound, right in near where the Tacoma Dome is, in Tacoma. And some of us went and planted trees in that area last January, Martin Luther King weekend. We did a tree planting event kind of in the tide flats there. So that's the people from the bend at the bottom of the river. And the people who originally lived here, the Puyallup tribe, they had a really nice life here because this area is so rich in natural resources. They had big, tall cedar trees that grew everywhere. And from that, they had the material that they could build their homes. They could make clothing from it. They made canoes. Their transportation came from the cedar trees. And they even got some of their teachings from the cedar trees. They learned about resilience and flexibility from the cedar trees. And the waters were filled with fish and shellfish, and there were land mammals like deer and bear, roots and berries, so they always had lots to eat. And they loved to share their resources. They had a wonderful tradition called the potlatch. Potlatch, it's a word that means to give away. And so people would gather for these great celebrations, and it could be for a variety of reasons. Someone was born, someone died, they were celebrating some victory of some sort, and they would give each other gifts, and they would give each other food and song and stories and dance. It was a tradition of great generosity, and it was seen as a great honor to be able to give to others. So today I want to share a story from this tradition. And many of the stories that we hear from the local Indian tribes and local Native tribes, they They all shared their stories. Many small groups of people lived all around. So we had the Nisqually and the Duwamish and the Suquamish and just a lot of different tribes. And of course the Puyallup. So many of these tribes told this story, I'm sure. And this is the story of how Raven stole Crow's potlatch. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there lived a magical bird named Raven. And Raven was a shapeshifter. He could turn himself into a man. He could turn himself into any kind of animal and back again simply by pulling up on his beak and taking it over the back of his head like a mask. And Raven would practice and practice until he could turn himself into any animal. He could fool just about anybody into thinking he was somebody else. And Raven was also very, very smart. He had considerable charm, but he was also a thief and a liar. He would use his charm and he'd tell his lies and people would believe him. Creatures who trusted Raven found themselves in big trouble sometimes. But Raven didn't care. Raven was as selfish as he was clever. One day, Raven looked up into the sky and he said, "Winter's coming." And he said it in a surprise sort of way. The snow's going to fall soon. I'll bet Squirrel has lots of food piled up by now. I'm going to go get some. And when he flew by Squirrel's house, Squirrel just hissed at him and said, "Go away, Raven. Go away. You're not stealing any food from me. Not one single nut." So Raven went on to Bear. But when he found Bear was already hibernating for the winter, and all of Bear's food was in Bear's belly. Well, so Raven flew up to the top of the tree, think things over, and figure out how he was going to get food. And all of a sudden, he came up with a very devious idea. Grinning broadly, he soared off in search of Crow, his cousin Crow. "Crow, Crow, everyone's talking about how beautiful your voice is. They can't wait to hear your song." And Crow thought about that and thought, well, if they want to hear my song, perhaps I'll host a potlatch. But a potlatch is such a huge party. There'd be so much to do, so much food to prepare and all the cleaning and the preparation. Raven said, "Don't worry, I'll help you get ready. Everyone wants to hear you sing." Well, Crow was very proud of his voice and said, "Okay, let's do it." And so Crow started cooking and Raven started cooking with him. And one day while Crow cooked and cleaned and practiced his singing, Raven flew out all over the forest, inviting everyone to his potlatch. "I'm having a potlatch," Raven said, not even mentioning Crow. "We're going to do it at Crow's house, but come to the back door when you get there. That way you won't have to wait in the crowd to get in." Crow worked and worked, cooking and cleaning, while Raven flew all over the forest, inviting everyone he saw. And finally, the big day arrived. Everyone came to Raven's potlatch, except the animals that had flown south for the winter and the animals that were snoozing away in their caves and burrows, and Squirrel, because Raven hadn't invited Squirrel. Raven could see the animals coming from far away. "There's Elk," he said. And he soared off, supposedly to see who else was approaching, but instead he circled around to the front of the house, landed behind Crow's house, and turned himself into an elk. And he went in through the front door, and Crow saw him and said, "Welcome, Elk. Welcome to my potlatch." "Why, thanks for inviting me, Crow," replied Raven, who was pretending to be the elk. "I can't wait to hear your beautiful voice." Raven, the elk, lowered his head and entered Crow's house. Then Raven flew out the back door, changed himself into Rabbit because he could see Rabbit was coming. And again, went around to the front and entered as Rabbit and was greeted by Crow. "Hello, Rabbit. "Oh, thanks for inviting me," said Raven as Rabbit. "I can't wait to hear you sing." And so this went on. As animals would arrive, Raven would pretend to be them going in the front door, and then he would go out to the back door, and he would greet them into the back door saying, "Welcome to my potlatch. Welcome to my potlatch." After everyone was there, Raven pulled Crow into the middle of the room and said, "Crow, we must hear you sing." And Crow, of course, obliged. And he sang, and he sang, and he sang, and he sang. And everybody cheered, and everybody loved hearing Crow sing. It was a wonderful party. Many gifts were exchanged. There was wonderful food. And towards the end, food was packaged up so everybody could take food home with themselves. And as everyone started to leave, they all looked at Raven, and they all said, "Thank you, Raven, for this wonderful potlatch." And Crow, hearing this, was confused because it was his potlatch. But Raven had fooled everybody into thinking it was Raven's potlatch. But by that time, Crow, who had been singing all afternoon, had lost his voice. He could barely get anything out, so he couldn't let people know that it was his potlatch, and everybody left with their food, thanking Raven for the wonderful potlatch. That winter, Raven got invited to everybody's potlatch because he had hosted such a wonderful celebration. And he went to all the potlatches in the land, but nobody thought to invite Crow. Crow didn't get invited to any of the parties. Poor Crow. To eat that winter, he just had to beg for scraps of food from the people. Crow couldn't even tell anybody about what Raven had done because he had lost his voice. And the only sound that he could make was caw, caw, caw. And that just didn't help him at all. That is our time for all ages this morning. I send you off with our words of exit. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your hearts be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go. Thank you, and be well.
Now is the time in our service when we offer our financial gifts to the work of this congregation. Thank you for your consideration to support our church during this uncertain and volatile time. You may follow the link on the following slide or click the link in the chat or text your donation to contribute your support for our church members and staff working tirelessly to keep our congregation connected in new and dynamic ways. Every little bit helps, and while we are physically apart, our gifts are certainly stronger together. Please now join me in the dedication of the offering. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls.
I invite you to join me in a time of quiet and reflection, a time for prayer, meditation, or simply being in stillness with yourself, as is most your custom. Take a deep breath, close your eyes. Spirit of love and of life, within us and around us always. In these few moments of quiet and reflection, we ask for clarity. In the comings and goings of our days, may we have the eyes to see the manifold blessings that surround us. Even in the midst of trouble and worry, May we have the ears to hear a sweet song of joy. Our lives are often a jumble of worry and treasures. Grant us the clarity to know what is worthy and what is not, what is noble and what is not, what requires our love. And grant us the presence of mind to give ourselves to what is worthy and true, to give ourselves to what is noble and blessed, and to open our hearts to all that is in need of love. In these few moments, at least, may we hold what clarity we have and keep it close to us as we go forward in our days. Let's pause now for a few moments of stillness together. So may it be. Amen.
Our reading today, our first reading today, comes from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching Plants. Children, language, lands. Almost everything was stripped away, stolen when we weren't looking, because you were trying to stay alive. In the face of such loss, the one people could not surrender was the meaning of the land. Sorry, one moment, please. My reading is cut off. I apologize. I'll just do my best to continue. I'm so sorry. In the settler mind, land was real estate, capital, or natural resource. But to our people, it was everything. Identity, the connection to our ancestors, the home of our non-human kinfolk, our pharmacy, our library, the source of all that sustained us. Our lands were where our responsibility to the world was enacted, sacred ground. It belonged to itself. It was a gift, not a commodity. So it could not be bought or sold. These are the meanings people took with them when they were forced from their ancient homelands to new places. Whether it was their homeland or the new land upon them, land held in common gave people strength. It gave them something to fight for. So, in the eyes of the federal government, that belief was a threat.
Before I start my remarks today, I want to share a couple of things with you. The first is to say that I had the pleasure last Monday of driving up to SeaTac as our beloved intern Arian Babcock was on her way through as she journeyed to Japan to oh my gosh, the word just Okinawa, where she has now joined her beloved husband, who she has not seen for a year, as he is stationed there, and she will be there with him for at least the next year. I think it's a little longer than that. I gave her a gift from our congregation. What you see is a chalice. It's called a Riverstone chalice, and it's made of wood from a maker who lives in Kitsap, and he made this for her. On the back of it are inscribed the words that we sing to our children. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. Brian Watson, yeah, that's right. Thomas, thank you. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. You may not know that that's the part in the service that always brought Arian to tears. So it was especially sweet for her to receive this chalice. She did not have one packed, in her luggage that she was carrying with her. And so she was really delighted to receive it, along with all of our love to her. I got to do two fairly brief faces turned away hugs, and with her, giving her my love and our love as a congregation. I'm sure she'll be in touch with us. I'd also like to let you all know that I am going to be taking some leave in January. I did not get leave time this summer, which is when I usually get some downtime and some rest time. So I'm going to be away for the month of January. And while I'm away, we will have a colleague of mine, Joe Rettenmeyer, who lives in West Seattle, will be available as support to the staff and the congregation. Joe is a fairly recent graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School, where our beloved Matt Aspen also attended. When our sabbatical committee last year was looking at a sabbatical minister, Joe was our first choice. You'll get to meet Joe next week. He's leading our service next Sunday, and I encourage you all to come and get to know him a little bit that Sunday. All of that said, I will set that down, take a cleansing breath. You all can take a cleansing breath too, and launch into my reflection for today. So I'll have to say, one of the things that I know about human beings is that we are a forgetful lot. My family would tell you, if you were to ask, that I can be terribly forgetful. And I suspect that is only going to get worse as time goes by. You know, we all have those moments when we arrive in a room on a mission only to forget what it was that we were on our way to retrieve. Or our internal search engine cannot find that word that we need. Or when we look at a brief note on the calendar, we cannot figure out, we have no idea what we were meant to be doing and with whom. I wonder if any of you have that experience very often. I probably have it more than I'd like to admit. We are a forgetful bunch of folks. We need a lot of reminders. Last week in our service, everyone was invited to make notes about the blessings in their lives and the things that we're all grateful for. I suggested in that service, and if you weren't there, I would suggest doing it today. I suggested that people jot down some of those things that they were blessed by or grateful for, and to put them somewhere they would be seen, and where they would be seen every day, regularly, a lot, so that they don't slip from our consciousness, because of course they do so easily. And today, we're talking about a different kind of reminder. As you may have noted, and some of you commented upon already today, we're starting to open our services with an acknowledgement of the Puyallup people, the people who have inhabited this land for millennia. It is becoming a common practice in some circles. Many of you, I know, go to the Grand or did before the pandemic descended. And I've heard from you that there is a short film that runs before the featured film that offers a land acknowledgement, both in English and the language of the Puyallup people. A conference I attended at Puget Sound University last year had elders from the tribe come and offer a welcome to the participants. And then the university acknowledged their gratitude for being on that land. In a like fashion, When we attended our daughter Claire's orientation for Gonzaga University in Spokane last year, we were greeted by a member of the Spokane tribe. And then the president, in his welcome to new students and their families, showed the shield of the university, which includes a picture of Spokane Falls. By its inclusion on that symbol of the university, he noted the foundational role that land plays and their recognition of the primacy of the Spokane's habitation and care for that land, as well as keeping at the forefront the ongoing relationship, their ongoing relationship with the tribe and their gratitude for the tribe's stewardship of and relationship with the land. In all of the noise this year, and good Lord, has there been a lot, you might have missed that this year was the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Pilgrims in Plymouth. And you may not be aware that the Pilgrims who landed in Plymouth are our Unitarian ancestors. We were the people who landed in Plymouth. The church that is there is a Unitarian Universalist congregation. The UUA, recognizing this, had planned for a year-long recognition of our part in the colonization of America, and had hoped that this would be a time for us to learn about our part in the centuries of oppression and genocide of the people who are native to this landmass. From the start in Jamestown in Virginia, the English and other Europeans came to colonize and settle the land, and they brought with them their ideas about the meaning of land and the purpose of land that was utterly opposed to the ideas and meanings that were held by the indigenous inhabitants. Robin Wall Kimmerer is one of the people that I lean on and I go to understand that different relationship with the land. Her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, from which we heard a reading this morning, invites us into different understandings of our connection to the land. Both a Potawatomi woman and a botanist, she teaches at the State University of New York. She marries together science and indigenous wisdom to deepen and expand our understanding of the world. Her description that Jonina shared today strikes at the core of the difference between the Western understanding of land and that of the natives. She said, it was everything: identity, the connection to our ancestors, the home of our non-human kinfolk, our pharmacy, our library, the source of all that sustained us. Our lands were where our responsibility to the world was enacted. It was sacred ground. It belonged to itself. It was a gift, not a commodity, so it could never be bought or sold. That kind of understanding of the land profoundly challenges the white settler Western idea of what land means that permeates our culture. That understanding aligns, that native understanding aligns much more deeply with what scientists are telling us and have been for decades about living in a global system and the impact of our actions upon it. It describes a relationship of mutual respect between the environment and humanity that only exists in a very small way today. In order to unlearn what we know about the world, this land and our place on it, that Western settler understanding that says we can parcel it out and own parts of it that belong only to us, that allows us to dig under sacred sites to pull chemicals and minerals out of the ground, to help us unlearn that sense of possession of the land rather than the land being there for itself. We have to keep reminding ourselves that something different is possible. To come into a more wholesome relationship with land and the people for whom it is identity, connection to ancestors, the home of non-human kinfolk, library, pharmacy, and the source of all that sustains us. We have to train ourselves to perceive and to think differently. It takes a persistent act of will to change how we see the world. We need the reminders every week, maybe every day. Beginning our services with that land acknowledgement, the acknowledgement of those who occupied this land long before white settlers arrived, and whose relationship with the land offers those of us who are white in particular a model of how to live in respectful harmony with the earth. Though it may not seem to be something that can change all that needs changing in to address the climate crisis that we are living in right now, it can be a reminder to us of what is possible and what is needed to make a difference. If we forget it as easily as we breathe, which I think most of us do, we need to be reminded again and again to turn back to it. To acknowledge the land when we gather, to acknowledge that there are other meanings than that of ownership and exploitation, and to center ourselves in relationship to the people and the place is a beginning of possibility. And I think today, friends, well, for a while, we have been at the beginning of a new journey. As we continue week on week to acknowledge the people and the place in a different way with a different meaning, we are leaning into a different kind of wholeness than we have lived into before. We will be exploring this and exploring our deeper relationship with the Puyallup tribe as time goes by. And I invite us all to take it up this journey with joy and to remember it week on week on week. So may it be. Amen. I invite you now to pause for just a moment, to take a breath. And if there has been something in the words or the music, something in the stillness or the companionship that has touched you this week, I invite you to set an intention for how you will carry it out into your life this week. Let us pause in stillness. So may it be. Amen and blessed be. Our closing words from George Brooks. May the love that gives life its beauty, the reverence that gives life its sacredness, and the purposes that give life its deep significance be strong within each of us and lead us into ever deepening relationships with all of life. May it be so for us in the days to come until we are together again. So may it be.
Thank you for joining us today. Now is the time we extinguish our chalices together and read our extinguish the chalice unison words that you can find in the chat. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing blessing song comes from our beloved member, Zyriel.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live.